we're going to explore something of the explanation that is set forth by the author in the book, The Secret Doctrine, and then go outside of this with such commentary and verification as is possible. The whole subject is not one that will reveal deeper aspects too easily or too quickly. There is no doubt that basically secret doctrine originated in the esoteric school of Buddhism. About 8 years before he published the work, Madame Blavatsky, while in Ceylon, proclaimed herself to be a Buddhist. In the many parts of her writings, she emphasizes her devotion to Buddhistic principles. It is interesting, however, that her book, her writings, are not based primarily upon the Southern school or the school of the others, which constitutes the most orthodox and definitively the most ancient school of Buddhistic thinking. Blavatsky's attitude towards the entire subject of Buddhism was largely colored by the Mahayana or Great Vehicle, which probably was especially close to her thinking because of her natural interest in Tibet and Tibetan philosophy. Actually, the secret doctrine is also a very well annotated work. Many authors have been quoted, paraphrased, or digested, and their books are listed as footnotes or referred to in the text themselves. However, most of the books referred to are of Western origin, and I want to very largely to support or to form useful parallels between Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy. 20 years ago, I attempted a brief summary of the descent of the adept traditions in Western civilization. And in so doing, it became immediately obvious that there is a strong literature relating to this subject, and many information and illusions, which is carefully investigated, will probably add considerably to our appreciation for this phase of esotericism. Madame Blavatsky, in annotating the secret doctrine, therefore leans rather strongly towards familiar texts available to and interpreted to Western thinkers. And doing this, she also calls upon many interesting and unusual phases of what might be termed esoteric philosophy. She gives time and space to the teachings, the doctrines of a number of ancient schools, which have no modern survival in their original forms, although some of them have been revived in one way or another. She gives us primarily of Egyptian metaphysics, of certain symbols and esoteric rites of the Parsis and Zoroastrian of Persia and India. She goes back considerably into the religion of the Greeks and related cultures of the area, and finds support for her basic premises in all of the religious and philosophical symbols and systems of Asia. We are therefore confronted with a vast array of material. Much of this material is available in our work. Much of these basic work have been done by the time Madame Blavatsky attempted extraordinary cultivation. Known as the character of Doctrine in his analysis of the veritable lifestyle, discovered the mysteries behind the name of Isis, and other writers, learned and pious, scholarly, mystical, all contributed in one way or another to the metaphysical overtones of the secret doctrine. These are added the scientific findings of the second half of the 19th century, up to the time 1888 when the secret doctrine was first published. This was a century of extraordinary progress, spearheaded by the achievements of men of the caliber of Spencer and Darwin and Huxley. Science was breaking through theological restraint and the fashion of placing secular men in chairs of philosophy and their universities has come to be practiced. Therefore, science was at the threshold of a new development within its own structure, which was to lead it inevitably in the direction in which we can now proceed, and which was perhaps not quite so evident 80 years ago. In any event, science had ideas, many really interesting positive opinions. And Madame Blavatsky used these so they fitted into the grand pattern in order to prove largely one point, that there was nothing new under the sun so far as knowledge is concerned, and that the discoveries in modern science were for the most part simply justified the philosophies, religions, and concepts of ancient times. In other words, nearly everything that was coming to be common knowledge in the closing years of the 19th century had been held as secret knowledge for the preceding several thousands of years. And modern research, modern investigation was simply building a scientific foundation under the roof long regarded as veneration and approval by the wisest of mortals. As the term secret doctrine suggests, Madame Blavatsky assumed as a basic premise that there were two concepts of knowledge, one esoteric and the other exoteric. Esoteric knowledge is that which related to the understanding of causes, and most of all, the secret science of the regeneration of man himself. The secret knowledge by which the human being could voluntarily cooperate with the great processes of universal law, which will bring him inevitably toward a state of enlightenment. Therefore, we might say, esoteric knowledge has to do with the discipline, the secret processes, the forms of knowledge, which have been revealed only to the initiates of the temples of all time. The same kind of knowledge of Plato so greatly applauded. And in the search for which he found thousands of pieces of silver, the partly destroyed and burned fragments of manuscripts from the ancient Pythagorean Institute itself of persona. This secret knowledge, this esoteric phase of knowledge, has to do with the truth of the spiritual revelation which underlies all temporal insight and knowledge. It has to do with traditions which have descended from generation to generation, concealed within symbols, allegories, and secret figures, passed on cryptically and in cipher, passed along also through the most secret methods of all arts and sciences, in such a way that the knowledge itself could be apperceived only by those qualified to receive it. But almost all books, therefore, as Madame Blavatsky points out, the great esoteric book, are unlocked by the key with 7 prongs that must itself be turned 7 times in the lock. This perhaps is an allusion to the 49 gifts of the Zohar, the secret Kabbalistic doctrine of Israel. So in these ancient times, symbols held in the great expanses was reserved often at the sacrifice and danger to life itself, in order that the mysteries or the secret institutions of knowledge might not be profaned, nor their esoteric tradition lost in the darkness of prevailing ignorance. In the secret doctrine as a book, therefore, we find traces of nearly all of the great systems which we now associate with esotericism. We find traces of Gnosticism, of the Manichaean heresy, which was to have such an important part in the early structure of Christianity. We contrast the mystical fraternity of the Essenes. We find ourselves in the sanctuaries of Delphi and in Egypt, in the temples of Thais and Luxor. We find material drawn from the Gnostic Gospel, from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, from the hymns of Orpheus, from the sagas of Amorphi, and from the Kalevala symbols. All of these blended together with the great lore and store of Eastern knowledge relating to these subjects, resulted in an amazing pattern, the important part of which was the essential symbol which emerged from the entire project. So out of all of these elements, as the substance of an architectural layout, was fashioned a structure somewhat different from what had previously been available. A structure which seemed to emerge as a new entity of knowledge from the background of a comprehensive survey of the essential beliefs of mankind. In other words, the effort was definitely to restore the original religion of mankind from the ruins and monuments which had survived. Now here the point of deviation with modern thinking is immediately obvious. The modern skeptic does not assume that there was ever a time when knowledge was greater than it is today. Nor does modern man accept the idea that somewhere in the remote past there is a vast array of facts, very secretly, but facts most of which have not been rediscovered even now, and perhaps wait for a more enlightened time in the future before they make themselves known to mankind. Due to conditions in Western civilization, Western man has always had reluctance in accepting the existence of a metaphysical tradition more authentic than science. He has been inclined to assume that really all so-called secret things were in some ways charlatanism. That secrets were merely superstitions, and that the strange conglomerate of religious symbolism that has descended to us from the past is nothing more nor less than a remnant of ancient lore, which was held at times when there were miraculous philosophic and scientific insight of a higher nature. Western man consequently has assumed that all knowledge is obvious knowledge. We admit that there is still much to learn, but he expects to discover it by scientific means, by research, by laboratory study, by the creation of spaceships and projectiles. He expects to learn more about the moon simply by ultimately getting there. And it has always seemed to him that the search for knowledge must be by obvious means. True, they have to depend on mathematics for formulas that are not otherwise conceivable. He must fashion certain hypotheses concerning the infinitely small units of matter. And it may also have to develop hypotheses to explain the infinitely great and vast structures of universal and cosmic existence. But the modern man says, give us time, give us opportunity, and adequate appropriation, and with our own minds we will solve the mystery of the universe. Well, this was the pattern which has descended through Western civilization and has finally reached us today, profoundly influencing our basic attitudes toward reality. We have also come to assume that this is the only valid path, and the beliefs of other people who might have thought otherwise will appear to have interest or concern to it. Only our own position, in our minds at least, as being the conquerors of the earth, carrying with us the battle of the world's only true religion, serving the only true system of true knowledge, science, and depending on the advancement of all culture and civilization upon the only valid occupation of man, industry. We have come to the conclusion down through time that there was only Western man with its progress and the rest of the world in the most benign condition of superstition. We also assume that any individual or group of individuals with other attitudes, other basic motivations must be inferior. Their knowledge must be inferior. A man who chooses to be poor must be inferior. This is the basic thing. Of course, under present conditions, if we become poor without choosing to be, then we can still remain superior. But we look upon what are called backward people. And we assume that when we realize that they do not have as large a budget for armaments as we have, that all we can have is a certain attitude of pity for these underprivileged ones. So we have no interest in searching in other parts of the world for knowledge. We follow the thinking of a German scientist in the turn of the present century who said that everything before the 19th century was superstition, and every important bit of knowledge since the beginning of the 19th century was in fact. And this, while we don't really make the statement as lively as we used to make it, is more or less the position of the ivory tower educator. We're going to maintain, as long as we can, as a purely materialistic attitude toward education. Madame Blavatsky attacked this in the 19th century when it was still in the process of formation as being a fallacy. And not only as being wrong, but as being stupid. And Madame Blavatsky had an excellent vocabulary in which to express herself. He had one of the finest collections of Russian words translated into English profanity that the world had heard for a long time. And we can reserve the best of these terms for the self-righteous materialist who was quite certain that knowledge could get along with the researches of Charles Darwin. But with this point of view, we have another point we must mention. Due to this attitude, there have been practically no defense of those forms of knowledge which have been rejected by science. There was no effort to perpetuate the war of old times because no one believed it to be important. If someone like the Grimm brothers or Hans Christian Andersen wanted to write children's stories around magic, mystery, and miracles, that was all right. But for sober thinking to depart from their mechanistic solutions to everything was simply madness. This meant that while some areas were well documented and well developed and acceptable in the research of knowledge, the whole area of transcendentalism was virtually ignored. About the only revival of it that could even be mentioned in the 19th century being that of the Emersonian group of New England transcendentalists. And they were very largely influenced by Oriental philosophy. A study of the books borrowed from the Boston Public Library by Emerson, a list of which, by the way, is in existence, would indicate that this material was derived from the same source, though not nearly as numerous references or as many books available as were used by Madame Blavatsky in the compiling and arranging of the secret doctrine. So, in the late years of the 19th century, esotericism burst upon the modern Western world without precedent, without any adequate foundation in belief. It had no ready, accepting audience. It could demand the attention only of a few who had long suspected, but had never been in a position to prove the existence of the traditions which he so clearly and admirably defended. So these factors resulted in the secret doctrine not only as a book being a compilation, but as being a presentation, a birth in later times of material, of reference works, of source ideas, which have been resting in limbo since the beginning of the Christian era, so far as the West was concerned. Now, this means that for a contemporary study of most of the ideas which he used, we have to search elsewhere. In her time, comparatively few Westerners had visited Asia. Those who had were mostly soldiers, missionaries, or merchants. The soldiers would scarcely be considered a prime subject for metaphysical indoctrination, although some of them were remarkably open to new ideas. Merchants had no interest until the second or third generation, when leisure developed in their class. And of course, missionaries were there for one purpose only: to spread their own doctrine and refute as much as they could of any philosophy different from their own. So these early travelers added little to the common interchange of knowledge between East and West. The first great monumental work in this area was the publication of the sacred books of the East under the editorship of Professor Max Muir. For the first time, a vast amount of literature was available in relatively accurate translation. There can always be a certain amount of questions in many of these old works, but the translations, if not letter perfect, certainly bestows a great impression of the ideas, the ideals, the concepts, and the beliefs of many Eastern people. Blavatsky, therefore, must be regarded as a pioneer in the bridging of East-West thinking. Perhaps her own background contributed a great deal to this, for she was in a mysterious way a geographical bridge between East and West, a living bridge between two great blood streams and two great racial patterns. In any event, she became aware, and was one of the very few Western persons of her time, with the exception of a few scholars associated with the British government in their compilation of various reports on conditions in Asia. He was one of the very few who ever gave much consideration to the life of over half the world. It has dawned on us since, of course, that Western man is numerically utterly outnumbered by non-Western man. We also realize for the first time, perhaps through Madame Blavatsky's writings, that the East was a great land of culture, that it was a tremendously powerful country, or mass of country, and that it was compiling great libraries while Western man was still gnawing bones in Central European caves. The Eastern culture was infinitely older than Western. It was different because it's objective with it. And because difference is the most confusing of all things to the average person. Western man has never been able to estimate difference without insisting upon qualifying it in terms of superiority or inferiority. We are now in a much better condition than we were 30 years ago to understand the religious, philosophical contribution of Asia to humanity. We are beginning to realize something of what went down and across the great Silk Road that bound China to the throne of the Caesars. We are beginning to know that there was a vast migration of ideas from the East at a time when the average Western historian was utterly unaware of the fact. But in fact, in those days, there were no Western historians. For historians also originated in Asia. this discovery of a vast world of ideas, very different from our own, yet not essentially incompatible. Ideas which also arose within human beings with essentially the same problem. And it makes no difference whether we deal with Eastern or Western man, we deal with war, we deal with hunger, pain, grief, loss, sickness, death. These are shared by all mankind. But Eastern man, attempting to solve the problem, took a different position from Western man. While the West sought to achieve all by conquering all, the East sought to achieve all by conquering self. Here is an entirely different basic perspective. A perspective which turns to the individual with the attitude that it makes comparatively little difference what we know about other things if we remain completely ignorant about ourselves. An Eastern man would never for one moment allow the idea that anatomy, physiology, or even psychology as we know it today, these, according to Eastern man, cannot reveal to the individual the nature of himself. He must go deeper. His self is not mind. His self is not body. He is not ambition. He is not hate. He is not fear. He is not grief. He is something else. And no matter how many of his attributes you heap together, you do not discover the man himself. Plato knew this. Pythagoras knew it. Because both of these men were in contact with Asia. In the development, therefore, of her philosophy, we can see what happened to Madame Blavatsky when she reached Asia. When she contacted the two extremes of Eastern thought, the school of the Buddhist elders in Ceylon, and the great system of the Mahayana or great vehicle in Nepal and Tibet. Here you have two extraordinary differences of attitude and relationship. You have here the entire pageantry of man's endless search for the solution to the mystery of himself. Here is a word given to the science of the meaning of salvation. And so a word which pays for this dedication by going around with a white cloth around his waist, whereas we were wearing top hats and frock coats. But what has this to do with the essential matter of things? And here is one of the points that Madame Blavatsky, to me always, has made most clear. We have mistaken the development of style and fashion and outer convenience. We have mistaken status for knowledge. We have mistaken the advancement and complexities of our luxuries for the solution of problems. Well, 30 or 40 years ago, we could not have convinced people in the West certainly that there was anything wrong with progress. It was doing wonderful things that had already found the way of avoiding measles. But with all this progress, as many of us are reminded to the immediate present, there has been no solution for a common whole. To the Eastern thinker, there is a universe that we know nothing about here, a vast space, an incredible area. Most of all, when Madame Blavatsky reached this area, she found herself in a living situation. She found herself among living people, living, thinking, practicing, believing, as Western man had 3,000 years ago. The Western man was all gone. It was all buried within the vast project of the extensions of mental knowledge. It was all bound up in the luxuries of printing and the advancements of technological science. But even today, 80 years after the secret doctrine was written, when you step from the surface of the Western Hemisphere to the surface of the Eastern Hemisphere, and you can now make this step in 12 or 13 hours, you immediately step into a different time dimension. You step into a world utterly different from everything that is familiar. And while the barrier of language is high, this is by no means the highest barrier. The barrier is a way of life. A way of life so completely different from our own, that to us it is little different from a story taken out of the Arabian Nights entertainment. It is hard for us to believe that there exists in the world today 1.5 billion people, not 1.5 million, 1.5 billion, with ways of life whose thoughts, convictions, attitudes, and ideals are comparatively unintelligible to us. And every time we send a diplomat over there, he makes it worse. It is not fair to say, however, that no longer is it impossible to bridge the universe. God has opened up these different regions. And the recent pages of history have greatly altered the relationship of these two vast hemispheres. But even today we are faced with this situation by comparison. A comparison that we have to face, whether we really enjoy it or not. If we look under the surface of Western civilization, what do we find? What is holding it up? No one seems to know. And those who look have not discovered too much of a tangible nature. There is Asia. When you look under the surface of Eastern civilization, what do you find? Everything. Because Eastern civilization is all subsurface, except for a few ports or a few strata in which progress is bringing about the effort to copy Western civilization. This copying was slavish up to a few years ago. Now it is no longer slavish. And most Eastern people are determined to preserve their own way of life, even if they do take on the more desirable aspects of Western culture. In 1885, in these years, this great subsurface culture of Asia was not essentially different in any particular from the general concept set forth in the secret doctrine. For in Asia, these things that to us are regarded as metaphysical, esoteric, occult, and improbable are the commonplace, the accepted, the expected, the inevitable. Even today, if you ask the average human, whether or not Mahatmas exist, he knows that he has been westernized, hesitates to answer. But it is very rare indeed to get a negative answer. Most likely, he will try to find some way of getting you off in a corner where you can be confidential. And then he will tell you that he does believe that there do exist great saints, witches, monsters, whatever you want to call it, things of incredible knowledge who still exist and live and realize in remote places, surrounded by disciples. Sometimes these disciples held to their teachers only by telepathic means. When I was in India years ago, I not only found very clear evidence of this, but contacted a number of non-Hindus who were disciples of these teachers and were being taught telepathically. This is the commonplace thing. Miracles occur on the street corners. You can see excellent ones almost every day in the park surrounding the Albert Museum, Victoria and Albert Museum in Calcutta. You will find everywhere, in the mountains, in the valleys, a world of people who now, in the 20th century, and then in the 19th century, even more perhaps, were convinced that on the great continent of Asia, God walked with men. You find there the same ancient practices, the same gurus walking along the Indian road, safely naming their disciples who might well repeat and revitalize and reenact the journeys of the sages of 25 centuries ago. Here also, on a little village by the side of a path, an old and wise Indian scholar may be delivering his sermon on the Mount. The young children gathered reverently at his feet. Here the great education is not in school, but with the Guru in the ashram. It is so today. And each Guru is a link between the Hindu disciple and the great network of mysteries, which in their final end come together in the mysterious palace temple shrine upon the crest of Nile. Everywhere this is real. Not only is it real, but it is sustained by many schools of scholarly people. It is not just the peasant, or the farmer, or the merchant, or perhaps some wandering old man with an alms bowl that represents this belief. One of the greatest Indian mystics, a university man, holding doctorates in exact philosophies and sciences. Many of them are doctors. Others are lawyers and legislators. But they still follow the ancient way of wisdom. They still believe definitely in the secret sciences and arts of human regeneration. They still believe in rebirth, in karma, in the workings of the law. They still follow the Vedanta system, the Yoga system, and the mysterious Kalachakra of the law. They are still followers of Tantra with its many-armed deities. But what we have never realized when we walk by these ancient sanctuaries is that the so-called worshipper of strange gods was not a worshipper at all, and never was, except perhaps a very minimal stratum of the utterly mentally retarded. To me, all of these people, these images and figures were symbols, embodiments, representations of cosmic principles. And when these followers began to explain the meaning of one of these strange icons that seemed so grotesque to us, he was soon in a rarefied atmosphere where probably the only persons who could follow him would be professors in the Boston Institute of Technology. These people, in describing their deities and in their processes, went in vast cycles of time, in incredible dimensions of space, and explored with a skill, wisdom, and dedication which we seldom see all of the diversified, almost incomprehensible mysteries of cosmic mind. These people had something that to them was vastly important. They not only had a great philosophic idealism, but to themselves and to almost any informed mind, they were able to present a story so logical, so reasonable, and so apparently irrefutable that there appears to be in this concept a possibility for building a foundation under the metaphysics of Western man to prove that these ancient beliefs, also delightful, were not stable. I remember discussing the problem with an elderly scholar in Bulgaria. This man was not without knowledge of Madame Blavatsky and her work. But the point that he wished to particularly make was a very simple one. He was a good scholar in the Christian Bible, and it was surprising how many Eastern philosophers are very aware of Western theology. And he said one thing that is very difficult for us to understand is why you draw a direct line across to divide the age of miracles from the age of rationalization. Your Messiah healed the sick, raised the dead, walked on water. The general people have stopped doing this. All these wonderful miracles happened long ago. What is long ago? Is 2,000 years long ago? In the great book of history, it is only an instant. If the prophet soul could talk to God, if Moses could hear the voice of the Almighty among the clouds and flames of Sinai, and this only happened 3,000 years ago. If the miracles of the first martyrs were true, as the age of miracles said, why do you follow Scriptures, every page of which includes the mystical, the miraculous, and to you the unbelievable? Why do you believe your Bible and deny the great body of esoteric knowledge which has to underlie the secret science of miracles? Even these miracles were not performed, and you are the ruler. And they were performed, and if they were performed, they can always be performed. And if you will believe this, go to the mountains of North India and see for yourself. There is no proof in this tradition. And to these people, the great wonder workers of long ago, the saviors of the Veda, the wonderful magician mystics of legend and lore, and Asia is strangely rich in monuments, each one of which stands witness to some spiritual conviction. Most of all miracles, all wonders, all of the strange fantasies seem to be of secondary importance in comparison to the one great mystery of mysteries, man discovering truth as an experience of consciousness. This is the whole project. This is the whole mystery, toward which all other things must naturally be. We must admit, therefore, that Madame Blavatsky was acquainted and well acquainted with the East Indian religious law, with the beliefs which he undoubtedly contacted every day, but still the great, mysterious, and wonderful beings of the sacred writings, the Vedas and the Parashas, the Puranas, still walk with men, still mingle with humanity, bearing witness to the secret art of human regeneration. But beyond this, Madame Blavatsky has some other and very interesting source of knowledge. For this there can also be no doubt. She needed at least one other stream to make possible the tremendous concept which she was able to formulate. And the only way she could have come into contact with this other stream was through a study of Northern or Mahayana Buddhism. Here she would have gone back to the great Indian sage Nagarjuna, who was to Buddhism what St. Paul was to Christianity. It was St. Paul that transformed the belief of a small sect of disagreeing Jews and transformed this whole concept into the basis of a great world religion. It was Paul who discovered the universal mystery concealed within the human circumstance. Nagarjuna did the same thing. Somewhere in the rise of Buddhism, something happened. And today there is no clear agreement as to what did happen. To the southern Buddhists, what happened was a corruption of his faith. To the northern Buddhists, however, what happened was the opening of the doors of illumination. For suddenly, Buddhism took on an appearance almost unbelievable in its influence and effect. Suddenly, a little group of very orthodox old eyes who sat alone in meditation were turned from all worldliness to the road, and exchanged all their personal goods for an empty bowl. These old arhats had gone out searching for the extinction of self in the non-existence of the eternal nirvana. The end of all misery being the end of self. This philosophy has been of great interest to Western people in recent years, especially in Europe and England. To the skeptic, Southern Buddhism has something of that philosophic materialism, that idealistic fatalism, which was appropriate to a disillusioned Western humankind. But in the process of its migration through Asia, Buddhism passed through the consciousness of 3 or 4 great Buddhist patriarchs. And from this wonderful album came forth the concept so utterly stupendous that it supplies the missing element to what we term the secret doctrine. Remember also that Buddhism was originally Reformed Judaism. That its real purpose was to bring the doctrine of human regeneration to those outside of the Brahmin class or caste. Therefore, it was not so immediately and obviously tied up with secrets. But Buddha himself, following the honest word for word the teachings of Jesus, when asked concerning his own doctrine, replied very simply that his work was dedicated only to the mystery of suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the path that led to the end of suffering. Then his disciples pressed him further and asked him about other matters. He answered very simply, yes, I know about other matters. I can answer your question, but I'm not going to. For the simple reason that we are concerned now with the good of man, and not with the extension of a great abstract system of intellectualism. In the modern school, it is affirmed, therefore, that to the people, Buddha taught a certain doctrine, but to certain of his closest associates and disciples, he taught something else. And this other view, which is also mentioned in the case of Jesus, this other teaching, had to do with the establishment of esoteric Buddhism, which was finally to become associated with the great structure of the modern army.